The restaurant was quiet except for the soft clatter of silverware and murmured conversations. Then a tense voice broke through the calm, cold as steel. "How can you defend those taxes knowing what they do to the poor?" The man froze, his fork midway to his mouth. All eyes slowly turned toward the confrontation. Introduction and setup. It was a chilly autumn evening in downtown Manhattan, the streets glowing with amber streetlights reflecting off slick pavement from a recent drizzle. Inside the Sterling table, an upscale restaurant known for discreet power dinners and whispered deals, the air was thick with the scent of oak-aged whiskey and freshly baked bread. In a corner booth sat Richard Caldwell, a man whose presence demanded attention, not for his wealth alone but for the sharpness in his eyes, the conviction in his posture. He wore an impeccably tailored navy suit, the faint gleam of a diamond cufflink catching the light every so often. Richard was no ordinary diner. He was a billionaire, a major shareholder in several Fortune 500 companies, and an outspoken supporter of former President Donald Trump. Tonight, like many others, he was quietly celebrating a lucrative deal with fellow investors. But beneath the surface of his success, Richard's mind churned with a restless urgency. To some, he was a titan of industry. To others, a symbol of greed and inequality. The tax reforms he championed were hailed by his peers as economic revitalization, but vilified by critics as favoring the rich at the expense of the vulnerable. Across the restaurant, unnoticed, sat Maya Brooks, a single mother and community organizer with a fire that matched Richard's. Her worn jacket and calloused hands told a story of hardship and perseverance. She had spent years fighting for working families crushed by policies like those Richard defended. Their worlds were destined to collide. The conflict begins. Maya watched Richard from across the room, her eyes narrowing as he sipped his wine, casually discussing profits and political alliances with his companions. She gathered courage, walked over, and stopped just short of his table. The din of the restaurant seemed to quiet as her voice cut through. "Sir, how can you defend those taxes knowing what they do to the poor?" Richard blinked in surprise. His calm facade flickered for a moment. Then he gestured to an empty chair. "Sit down and let's talk," he said, voice measured but not unkind. The few diners nearby leaned in, sensing the brewing storm. Maya sat, the chair scraping softly against the polished floor. "I don't think you understand what's happening to people like me," she said, voice steady despite the adrenaline. "My community is struggling. Kids are going hungry. Jobs are disappearing. And your tax policies—" Richard raised a hand, interrupting gently. "I know what you think, but these policies create jobs. They spark growth. You can't lift people by pulling down the successful." Maya shook her head, her eyes moistening. "But what about the millions left behind? The ones who pay more than their fair share just to survive? I'm tired of hearing about trickle-down." "It never trickles." The room seemed to hold its breath. Midpoint revelation, the twist. Richard looked away, the fire in Maya's eyes stirring memories long buried. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a faded photograph, a grainy black and white image of a small boy standing barefoot on a cracked sidewalk. "That's me, 20 years ago," he said quietly. "I grew up in a neighborhood just like yours. My family struggled with bills, with hunger, with despair. I worked 2 jobs just to put myself through school." Maya's expression softened but remained cautious. "Then why defend these taxes that hurt people like you? Why champion policies that make it harder for others to climb out?" Richard sighed deeply. "Because I believe in opportunity, not charity. The system isn't perfect, but tearing it down without a plan just breeds chaos. I made it because I fought through the system, not because the system was kind." Maya stared at the photo, the weight of his confession settling over her. Climax, emotional breakthrough. "Maybe you're right about one thing," Maya whispered. "Opportunity. But it should be for everyone." Richard nodded, the hardness in his eyes softening. "Agreed. And that's why I'm funding new programs in underprivileged neighborhoods, because I don't want anyone to suffer like I did. Maya's lips trembled, a tear escaping down her cheek. I didn't know. A silence grew between them, heavy yet hopeful. Richard reached across the table, placing his hand over hers. We don't have to be enemies. Change happens when people listen, not shout. Maya smiled faintly, her heart opening to a new possibility. Resolution. And quiet closure. Outside, the rain had stopped. The city lights glistened on the wet streets, reflecting a new kind of hope. Maya and Richard rose from the table, stepping outside together. They watched as a pale dawn broke over the horizon, the sun cutting through the lingering mist. The weight of years and prejudices seemed lighter now. As they parted ways, Maya whispered, "Maybe tomorrow things can be different." Richard nodded. Maybe they already are. The world spun on, but for one night in a quiet restaurant, two hearts found common ground. Call to action. If this story touched your heart, consider subscribing for more inspiring tales of hope, healing, and unexpected kindness. Hit the like button and share this with someone who needs it today.